All right, we have just gotten back from the first of 2 races at Gingerman. The next one's going to be our 10th anniversary event coming up this fall. The first one was the Cure for Gingivitis. Judge Phil, Judge Eric were running the show with this one. They came up with a couple of great new penalties. Judge Phil was driving a Jaguar press car, which of course came with a hard-bound book showing off the attributes of this fine British luxury
The only thing
sedan.
in the entire car made with quality.
Yeah, so the penalty, of course, was to have drivers read ridiculous things out of the book. Judge Eric, meanwhile, went to Walmart and got some romance novels and had miscreant LeMons drivers reenact the covers to these romance novels.
Our boys come back, Paul.
So we got to talk about Team Sheen and their horrible Murata, street registered, of course.
Yeah.
They're driving to the track. They say, hey, man, let's see if this thing will do 90. It goes 90, at which point the Landau roof, boom, rips off the car, spirals about 15 times, lands in a cornfield, shatters into a bunch of pieces. And they said, well, we cannot run a LeMons race without our Landau roof. So they tromped off into the farmer's field, got the roof, stuck it back onto the car with lag bolts, knowing that that would get them Class C. They got Class C, and they won! Excellent show.
So I'm just going to quickly mention the overall winner of this race, which was Wisconsin Crap Racing and their BMW E36. Now, these guys have been racing with us for a while. They've never come close to any kind of success, and this time they just inexplicably went out and won the race. The important thing is, everybody thinks, oh, the E36 is such a cheaty car, blah, blah, blah. This is actually the first time in 150-plus races that an E36 has ever won overall at a LeMons race, so there you go.
You know, on a similar note, worth mentioning, the Dumar Racing Trans Am. So they blew up their super kaboomy, fantastic small block. They were desperate. They got a one-barrel 307 out of a junkyard somewhere, put it in. This is absolutely the worst small block engine ever made with the worst intake system ever made.
One barrel.
Car ran fantastic.
All right, this was hella sweet. These dudes, veteran LeMons racers, Alfa Romeo enthusiasts, and mechanics, they got...
You really have to be both.
Yeah, it's really one and the same.
Yeah,
so they got a GTB6, and they said, GTB6, pretty cool. You know what's way more cool is the 155 DTM from 1990s touring car racing. And they saw the GTB6, they looked at a picture of the DTM car, they figured, we can do that with a little plywood, no problem. And they did, and it looked awesome.
This race, there was a lot of examples of taking really awful stuff that's supposed to be racy, making it unracy, and it does better. For example, Roland's old RX-7. Now, Roland Hahn, our timing guy, he brought this horrible RX-7 many, many times, and it never ran, and it annoyed the hell out of us because it was incredibly loud, and he finally just gave up on it and gave it to this team. They said, screw this, we're putting in a small block V8, and we are putting a 300-pound honey badger on the roof. Car has never been better.
All right, now Chicken and Waffles Racing, which is our friends Mike Austin and his gang of automotive journalists. So they bought this Lumina APV, which, as you know, is the General Motors Dustbuster-shaped minivan. And they have a V6 supercharged 5-speed manual gearbox, and to top it all off, a paint job of the monorail from the Simpsons episode. So we had high hopes for this thing. It looked great. It was ridiculous. It was run by automotive journalists that somehow aren't idiots. This car was going to do great. But instead, it went out on Friday practice, it blew up, it caught on fire, and it never really came together, and it was very sad.
Typical automotive journalist. Okay, now this next thing, I'm just going to read you from Phil's notes. So Phil wanted us to mention the Superbird Mustang of That'll Do. 6-cylinder Mustang with a duct-taped Superbird job. All right, that's pretty good. Pretty cool. So these guys, before the race, their driver is getting in the car, reaches in the wrong place, snaps off the cruise control stock. Yeah, it still has the cruise control stock. And from that point on, the car cannot exceed 35 miles an hour. Outstanding.
All right, much to our chagrin, we should make a mention of the continuation of the Ramble On Forward program, which is the Rambler that's being passed from race to race, from team to team, and the grand tradition of the K-Car, which is the worst LeMons car of all time.
Ever made,
So it was at Gingerman. It sucked. Now, from this point, it's going to CMP, where it will be in the capable hands of Sasha and Sputnik Racing.
Oh yeah, that's going to go great.
I'm sure that'll make it better.
Yeah.
Special award for this race was the Shameless Pandering to the Series Sponsor Award, which is Roadkill.
Right.
And they have a project car they call General Mayhem, which is a 68 Dodge Charger that has all different colored body panels and everything. So this team called themselves Grandpa Mayhem, and they had a Buick Park Avenue Ultra don't forget the Ultra.
Ultra.
Painted up and done up just like the Roadkill General Mayhem, and it was awesome.
The thing about the Ultra,
Yeah.
it's got the GM 90-degree V6 that was put into about 38 million vehicles through the 80s. And in the words of our friend Pete Stout, this engine is remarkable for one thing.
Yeah.
He calls it the sound of power. This engine, no matter what angle you are on the accelerator or how much load, it has one note.
Yeah.
And it varies only by volume and octave.
Yeah.
So you're going along, you take off. That's all that engine does. And when you see them in LeMons, that's all they're doing. They're going, wherever they are.
It has a sort of vaguely organic, vaguely industrial, very coarse tone. And if you ever drive through the Midwest where there's a million Grand Ams and Pontiac Bonnevilles and Cutlass Sierras and whatever else,
All you hear at every stoplight.
every stoplight, it's like the sound of my summers visiting my mom's family in Detroit.
It's like not even a car. It's like a... Or it's like a...
It's kind of like...
It's, I don't know, it's like an...
God, what does that sound like? It almost sounds like...
It's like a...
It's sort of evocative. Oh.
It's like a...
And I miss you.
So this being the Midwest, those engines were like half of the field actually, including, you know, the Dustbuster minivan and the I Got Screwed guys. So the I Got Screwed guys is the effing new guys in their Monte Carlo. When they showed up, this Monte Carlo was like out of the Monte Carlo concourse. It was the Pebble Beach version of these things. This was an incredibly clean race. In fact, for an hour and a half at one point, there were no calls. There were no flags. There was nothing. It was super clean, except for the Monte Carlo. This thing was the crash magnet of the entire weekend, and all the general destruction that usually happens was focused on these poor bastards. By the end of the race, it was done.
Heroic Fix went to apocalyptic racing, no strangers to wrenching
God,
themselves.
no.
They have a horrible 78 Celica with a GM Ecotech swap in it. They're always doing some kind of crazy wrenching on it. But this time, they spread the love and they were helping out a whole bunch of other teams. There was a Supra campaign by a bunch of new guys. They didn't read the rules. Their whole cage needed to be replaced. The apocalyptic guys welded on that thing overnight, got the Supra on track. They helped the Rambler with all of the structural repairs that obviously it needed because it's a Rambler.
Because it's the Rambler, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming, like, their own car didn't need anything at all, right?
No, it totally sucked like usual and they worked on that too.
Okay. Judge's choice went to Burnt Rubber Soul and their 81 Imperial. And I think the judges just like this because they took the 81 Imperial, which was that horrible Cadillac Seville bustleback knockoff of an already terrible car. They painted it bright super lime green like a Roadrunner theme, ran all weekend. Phil just thought that was hilarious.
Organizer's choice went to Jackleg Racing, who were driving a 97 Neon themed up as Doobie's Taxiola from the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Now, if you've seen the movie, Doobie comes and picks him up in this taxi that's all gussied up with dingle balls and Christmas lights, and he himself is a greasy, sketchy dude with the pompadour. The whole scene lasts about 40 seconds, and it's really dark and hard to make out. But these dudes obviously took a VHS tape of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles and watched it 700 times so they could get every last detail of this taxi to put onto their 97 Neon. It was incredibly well done. The car finished in the top third.
And the IOE was the Mighty Metro, which was a 3-cylinder Geo Metro, finished in the top third with 53 stomping horsepower. Its fastest lap was actually slower than all but like 2 of the cars in the field, but it was out there and it just kept going and it almost won Class C. There you go.
That's it. Here's LeMons in a nutshell. to make a left turn, but there's traffic coming, and I just go.